Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm just a little concerned.
Oh, what now?
Well, I think the devil went down to Georgia, pushed Billy Joe McAllister off the Tallahassee Bridge. I think we got. Don't worry, we got Charles Jones on it. He's heading down there to kick some butt.
No, he's not.
Oh yes, he is.
He passed away.
He's not going to stay there. He's got better places to go, but he'll get the devil back into his cage.
You know what I found out about Charlie Daniels now that he passed that I didn't know? He played bass for Bob Dylan for a number of years.
Yeah, they were talking all sorts of things. He was in the Urban Cowboy movie, which I'd never seen, the one with John Travolta. He's played with Johnny Cash. He played with Marshall Tucker. So, and that song that I alluded to is the one that broke him into his own unique category of superstardom. And
he had a hit before that, because when he started in music, he was a hippie and did the song Uneasy Rider, where he made fun of Southern hillbillies. And then he found out they have money and completely changed who he was. And for the last 15 years, he's just been a right-wing troll on the internet.
I listen to his music. It's good stuff.
But that's one of those deaths where I went, oh, okay. The one that got me, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail because it's not comics related, Enrico Morricone, the film composer who composed hundreds of film scores, including The Untouchables, Once Upon a Time in America, Once Upon a Time in the West, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More, Django, Django Unchained, probably the best film composer of all time. And he passed away in his 90s. But that's not why we're here, Joe. We're here to talk about the draft.
The draft?
Oh, wait, no. That's Alice's restaurant.
Oh, I thought you were talking draft beer. I was like, I not really into alcohol at the moment. And I'll talk about it when we get to geeking.
We're here to talk about previews. Yes, the new previews is out.
I thought you were going to finally tell me you understood the connection between the Fingerhut Corporation and First Avenue.
Didn't Fingerhut own First Avenue for a little while?
Close. We'll talk about that in geeking, since you are so verklempt on wanting to talk about previews.
Yes, I am, because previews last forever.
It does, and it's not like we're getting the books. I mean, I've seen comics like showing up at the source and stuff, but I haven't gotten anything from Discount Comic Book Service.
Mine has been saying ready to ship now for a week and a half. So I'm wondering if they're a little stretched being DC's distributor.
Being DC's bitch.
And another thing in previews, DC is actually in this month's previews, even though they're not distributed by Diamond.
Sort of in the book.
No, they're listed same as they were before when they had the DC, their own DC previews. It's the same setup as before.
Don't worry. We'll talk about it when we get to them.
Weird. It's weird.
Start at the very beginning.
Let's see. Previews.
As you know, this is an interactive podcast, so those of you who have your copies of previews, the Comic Shop's catalog, for number 382, July 2020. So you want to open up, and where should we start, Cory? Right. Do we have an image problem?
We'll start with image, but I want to start with the fact that for the first time in, I don't know how many months, they don't have any information on Free Comic Book Day. Free Comic Book Day is now Free Comic Book Summer. They're going to be 4 or 5
I can't help but think is a kind of a cluster F to everybody, because if you recall, I mean, that was like a major deal for us. And it was also a major deal. I mean, the Source had an event on it. We would jump up to Granite City. He had sales. even the one that I participated in when I had Crazy Comics, I made as much on that day as I did all week. And that was a small shop. I can't imagine. I mean, these guys are hurting for income already. And then you have this big, not only are cons gone, but you lost a couple months of sales, not only from whatever local COVID restrictions you had, but then just comics not shipping. And well, we were kind of disappointed because when we went down to Cedar Cliff, we didn't get a chance to talk to Steve Brown, the man of renown about town without a frown. Because I know before I was able to talk with him, and that it was the last diamond shipment, which corresponded to that weekend all shops in Minnesota closed, and he was looking at it like a vacation. But it'd be interesting to see how he did. I also know, talking with the source, they said, yeah, we were fine. So whatever the source did in their timeout, they're fine.
Well, the source also, comics are not their main source of income.
I think
they're primarily a game shop.
Well, and it's the other thing that hurts is their game. You can't game there. They don't have open night gaming, and that's a big one too. But I also know games have a markup of, at least when I looked, at about 50%. So when you're buying a $50 game, you're giving about half of that to the source. So that's like graphic novels when I had Hot Comics. That's a lot of ching to, what do you want to sell? A bunch of $1.99 comics, or do you want to sell one of those $20, $30 graphic novels? And I'm like, why not do both? Which is what I did.
And it's one of the things I talk about when it comes to the omnibuses. Yeah, they only sell like 2,000 copies. But if you look at the number of dollars they bring in, they're usually the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 source of dollars for comic shops every month.
And as far as I know, do they make them to order, or do they usually, they might have a little?
They usually keep some to the side. No one talks about it much anymore. I know DC back in the 90s and early 2000s, they had the mythical warehouse where, okay, we're going to print a new DC archive. We have orders for 3,000. We're going to make 10,000 so that we have them in stock in perpetuity. And now they don't do that anymore.
I think they almost can't, because really, if you're an omnibus buyer, you can either pre-order them through like Midtown or Discount Comic Service at almost half price, or get them on the eBays when they're published and ship for either half price or a little bit above. Or if you're a hunter, like you've been known to do, Cory, wait until they show up for like 10, 15 bucks on Amazon or something.
Yeah.
So really, the omnibus market, as successful as it is, has kind of cannibalized itself. So there's no reason that a publisher would want to keep an omnibus in print. Just make them, get your money, move on to the next thing.
Although Marvel reprints a lot of theirs now.
Well, if they can keep them out of print, yeah, that works out fine, because then they know there's a demand. I know for a while it used to be when, and again, this is 90s information, but it was like if you were publishing a comic book and you had pre-orders of, say, 30,352, it was easier just to pay the printer 50,000, because it was, for them to start and stop the printer at an exact run is tough, because usually there's a certain amount of printing where they just get thrown away because they got to get the colors together, and then they run, and then it's got to stop. So the beginning and end are usually thrown out. My brother, when he worked in printing, would give me these rolls of like hundreds of stickers, like Batman, Superman, some of those. Remember those scratch and sniff ones that smelled funny?
Oh, yeah.
Like that? And I said, what are these? I said, these are just the end of the rolls that we don't use, because it takes so long for the machine to slow down, and then these are just not fit for what they want. So we just cut them off the end, give the publisher or whoever what they want. Again, that's old information. Maybe it's changed. I know there's a number of small places that'll do it to order, but yeah, I could see with the omnibuses, because they're so higher buck that they're saying, okay, we want this many. And then if they have a few extra left over, whatever. At least that's my image of it. Oh, man, you're right. Segues are tough.
Well, let's get into Image.
Okay, I ordered nothing new from Image. How about you?
I ordered a couple new things. I'm interested in the Department of Truth, which is on page 30. But boy, that looks like something that I need to buy as a trade paperback or a hardcover that collects a bunch of issues.
Can I read it since I have nothing Image?
Yeah.
It says Cole Turner has studied conspiracy theories all his life, but he isn't prepared for what happens when he discovers that all of them are true. From the JFK assassination to the flat earth theory and the reptilian shapeshifters, one organization has been covering them up for generations. What is the deep, dark secret behind the Department of Truth? And I concur with you, Cory. This one I'm real interested in. If it was a mini series, I probably would have jumped on it. But it's at a beginning of a series, and I imagine they'll do like Images want to do. The first 6 or 10 will be the first book, and so on and so on.
The next one I'm interested in, although I'm not buying the hardcover because it's only 72 pages long, is page 38. Dracula, motherfucker.
Yeah, we can do that because we're explicit, but they had to put 2 asterisks in there.
In Vienna, 1889, Dracula's brides nail him to the bottom of his coffin. Los Angeles, 1974, an aging starlet decides to raise the stakes. Crime scene photographer Quincy Harker is the only man who knows it happened, but will anyone believe him when he gets his own chalk outline, before he gets his own chalk outline? I like this idea. It seems very much like a Hammer film. And also Alex DeCampi's a very fun writer. Erica Henderson's art, if you look on pages 39, 40, and 41, her art is very fun. This looks just to be weird and silly. And then there's another book that I'm picking up as trades, but the first issue is out, and that is Inkblot #1, Emma Kubert and Rusty Glad. Art is Emma Kubert. Emma Kubert, yes, she is the granddaughter of Joe Kubert. Let's see. This new ongoing series follows a powerful sorceress attempting to correct her greatest mistake, the creation of a magical cat that can travel through time, space, and reality. The cat threatens to unravel the fabric of the universe, doesn't care, and just won't listen. I like the fact that, okay, it's not going to be an intelligent cat. It's not going to be, an anthropomorphic cat. No, it's just a cat. Travels through time and space and screws everything up. Because that's what a cat would do.
That's what cats would do. That's what cats do.
The Image has kind of, like most publishers, hey, I'm going to buy the trade. And even though they say it's ongoing, most of their ongoings, unless it's Savage Dragon or Spawn, have an endpoint at some point. So you can count on a nice, fully collected version.
And sometimes it's on their sales, because there'll be something that's an ongoing that they've never finished. Copperland, I'm looking at you.
But other than that, the rest is just stuff that continues to keep coming out, like Black Magik or, let's see, Black Magik or Die. Adventure Man was so good.
See, and that's the thing. There's a lot of publishers I'm just not buying from. Doesn't mean I'm not getting things. It's just part of my regular stuff. Maybe in the future we'll do another. This is what I buy regularly.
Yeah.
And of course, we're always open to suggestions. If you got something we overlooked that you think, why did these guys talk about it? Just send us a quick note. We'll put it in a future show.
Eventually.
Anything else, Image?
Nothing else, Image. Next up is Dark Horse.
I'm going to cheat because I'm going to tell people go back to April's show and on previews, because Spy Island here is being resolicited. It was originally, I spent a lot of time going through and canceling out all the books that were canceled for whatever reason, only to be resolicited. And there's a few I got to keep an eye on because I haven't seen them resolicit. But Spy Island is one of them. Super spy Nora Freud, no relation, has a plum assignment. She's stationed on a tropical island. Her mission? Keep an eye on things. Her problem? The island's on the lip of the Bermuda Triangle where anything can happen. Her other problem? This particular island is a den of intrigue populated by spies, tourists, and evil villains set on global domination. A 4-issue series, resolicited, so if you didn't listen to me in April, here's your chance to get it right in July.
If you go to page 88, one of the greatest comic series of all time is returning. Evan Dorkin on Bill and Ted. Evan Dorkin did Bill and Ted over at Marvel of all places, and it was so damn good. Well, every time Bill and Ted come back, they ask Evan Dorkin if he's going to be having anything to do with it. For the longest time, he said no. This time, he is working on it. He's doing the art with Robert Landridge. He's writing it with Roger Landridge, who did the 8-issue Thor series with Chris Samney, who did the Muppet series, who's done all these amazing, wonderful things. I can't even imagine these two together for 4 issues. These two, you know how Joe says he could write the phone book and I'd read it? If these two just did a comic of 4 people walking down the street for 4 issues, it'd be the most entertaining comic of the month. Highly excited about this. And just look at that cover. That is pure Evan Dorkin goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Now if we could just get him to go back to Marvel and do another issue of Fight Man.
Fight! I will point you to the next page, just because it's if you're big on the Orville, this is where season 2 left off. As you know, we're waiting for season 3. But this is written by the executive producer, David A. Goodman. More of Seth MacFarlane's sci-fi adventures. If you like the Orville TV show, you definitely will like the comic. If you don't, well, go check out the TV show. And then you got a little time before this comes out. You don't want to be left behind.
Turn the page. I am not pointing this out because I'm going to buy it.
But
Alien, the original screenplay. This is the last Alien miniseries Dark Horse will be doing.
Because?
Well, who bought Fox last year?
It wasn't Jeffrey Einstein. Who's Epstein? I forget. Oh, Disney. Wait,
what does Disney own?
Did they thaw him out? Oh, what? They own Fox.
And?
Alien, Predators, Simpsons, Orville, Marvel.
And Marvel.
Everybody. They own almost everything. I should just sign my paycheck over to them. Or
So
give
this
a little bit
weekend,
to Time Warner and a little to WWE. But
this weekend, Marvel sent out a couple of pieces of art. Aliens and Predators will be in the Marvel Universe.
yeah, and they're going to be in their own universe, or do you think they're going to mix them in eventually into the Marvel?
The picture we saw was the Predator on top of Avengers Tower holding Captain America's shield.
Ooh, so what I read was wrong. Why not? They've already fumbled through DC Universe.
Well, they brought Conan into the Marvel Universe.
By the way, you probably should be looking for those intercompany crossovers that are no longer publishable.
Yes. Also, I imagine Dark Horse will have a sale on it, but you'll want to pick up the Dark Horse omnibuses. Remember, the Dark Horse omnibuses are the trade paperbacks that run about $25. They're probably going to blow all of their Alien and Predator stuff out, because if it's like with Buffy and Conan and
Star Wars,
yeah. When the rights transfer, Dark Horse can no longer sell the stuff. Now, stores can still have it, but Dark Horse has to, anything that's left in their warehouse when the rights transfer has to be destroyed.
And if you're a guy like me who likes to sell on the eBays, here's your free eBay tip. Pick some up. If you don't believe me, go check out the prices on Conan Meets Gru.
Check out the prices on, what is that book? What's the big there's a big 800-page Conan book that Dark Horse put out right at the end of
I didn't pick it up.
right at the end of owning the rights, that they basically printed to order, and within a month it was already double the price on eBay.
Yeah.
So you want to pick up that stuff as soon as you can, because once it transfers to Marvel, Dark Horse can't sell it anymore. They are doing a reprint of one of their best books they've ever printed. That is on page 99, Noir, A Collection of Crime Comics. It's 104 pages for $20. Brian Azzarello, Jeff Lemire, Ed Brubaker, Dean Motter, Alex DeCampi, Paul Grist, Rick Geary, Gary Phillips, Kano, Eduardo Barreto, Sean Phillips, Gabriel Baugh, Joel Jones, Fabio Moon. This is one of the best anthology books Dark Horse ever put out. It's just a series of short crime stories. It's 104 pages for $20. You're going to get $50 worth of reading out of it. It's that damn good.
So a couple things I'll point out that I'm not getting, but if you're, when you hear the properties involved, you'll understand why I'll mention them. The first one, of course, on page 93 is the Neil Gaiman Library, Volume 2, which has 4 more essential Gaiman tales. I've bought them in their smaller formats, but if you have never bought these, these and the underneath you'll get the code for the Neil Gaiman Library Volume 1. I want to give a kudos to Dark Horse, and there's a few other publishers as well who actually published the little number there. See that little tiny number down there in gray? January 200306. That's the number. If you were to go to your retailer and say, hey, I want to order this, you give him that number, you just made his job 20 times easier. Although it is pretty easy to reorder stuff through Diamond. But if you've never read these books, and you're a Neil Gaiman fan, you owe it to yourself to pick them both up. On the next page, on page 95, The Toys of He-Man and Masters of the Universe. If you've had toys, if you like He-Man, if you want to be a Master of the Universe, this is a hardcover you should definitely think about picking up. They are beautiful hardcovers with pictures of, you either go, oh my God, I wish I had that, or oh my God, I wish I kept it. Again, I'm not a big He-Man fan, but I know a number of people who are that would probably absolutely love this. And this is the type of thing when I had both stores, I would have probably ordered and put on the shelf just because you're probably not going to see it anywhere else. That's it for me for Dark Horse. Anything else for you, Mr. Strode?
No. And now DC.
Okay, didn't order a fucking thing. Next up is IDW.
Well, I had a few things I wanted to point out.
I can't order nothing. All they give you is a list of nothing. There's nothing to order from DC. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not ordering things. I mean, Green Lantern, Young Justice, the fun stuff. And yeah, even JSA Book 4, just because I like that run. But yeah, there's nothing here. Nothing. They didn't even bother giving us a poster or anything to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to be ordering here. Just a list. What's wrong with you, DC?
Well, I actually downloaded the DC Connect number too.
I got 2 words for that, but we've already used our bad words this time. Okay, fine. I'll sit back and listen to you try to tempt me with some DC shit. What you got?
Well, first off, the Joker War and the what is it? What are they calling this big crossover thing? Death Metal.
Oh, Death Metal.
Yeah. These are our big crossovers, and this is where a lot of the stuff is happening. There aren't really any new series from DC. I think that's kind of because of the COVID-19 thing. But we're getting Detective Comics 1027, which is the 1000th issue of Detective Comics with Batman in it. And I think DC does a really good job on these big anniversary issues. I just got the Joker 100-pager, the Flash 750, which was a 100-pager, the Wonder Woman, which was a 100-pager. This one looks to be just as good. I'm excited about that. Regular comic-wise, again, there's nothing new. There are no new series at all. And that's kind of surprising. But then again, DC, they're in a transition to new distribution.
fucking up the comic book market. You don't
There,
matter anymore. Go to a bookstore. Go
there was
online.
there was probably a mandate from above that said, "Hey, hold off on
We're
new
going to
series."
fuck off the comic industry. We're going to push people to online. We're going to do digital. We're going to put them into bookstores. Am I
And
being too partisan here?
and also, most of their planning for new series were around 5G, which has been killed.
Yeah, which really sucks because it sounded vaguely interesting, but whatever.
My problem with it was, it's okay. All of your regular comics are going to be, new people as these characters. But if you want to read Bruce Wayne as Batman, you've got to pick up the Black Line. If you want to read Clark Kent as Superman, you got to pick up the Black Line. We all learned a lesson with the Spider Clone. And that is, you can change something in the comic, but you have to change it back eventually because these characters are known outside of comics.
See, and that's why I think what you're saying, while valid, is kind of moot because we'll never know. We also know they were talking about having another Crisis. So, and as we all know, if you're a secondary or a renamed character in the DC universe, you're not long for this universe.
Right.
So, but yeah, we'll never know.
We'll never know, but I'll always point to, hey, Spider-Man became Ben Reilly.
Well, that was a case of marketing overriding editorial.
Right.
We'll never know in this case because it's gone. So I can't really badmouth something we never seen. I wasn't overtly excited about it, but I was interested in it. And again, it's hard. It's hard not
Parker back as Spider-Man.
It's hard not to be interested in it, or it's hard to be. I don't know. It's hard to be too negative or positive about it when we don't know much about it.
Right.
So again, and I don't buy that the Clone Saga would have replayed itself not with Jeff Jones in charge, but now that we hear more, we suspect more editorial. And we're talking way too much on DC. You gave me one fucking page in the previews. That's it. On to IDW.
No, I want to get back to the point I was making that you cut me off on. Why was Peter Parker put back as Spider-Man?
Who cares? It's over with. Let's go on.
Because people knew Peter Parker from the cartoon, and when they started making the movie, they went to Marvel and said, "What the fuck is this?"
They muffed the dismount.
So, trade paperbacks, I don't think there are any omnibuses at all.
No omnibus. They're omni-free. And I was lucky because I've been waiting for, another Grant Morrison or...
Hold on, there is another omnibus. There's the Lucifer Omnibus Volume 2.
Which was a fun read. I read them as trades when they came out. So if you've never read it... And there's other things, too, I'd recommend. I mean, I love Doomsday Clock, even though it's not canon anymore. And it's sad because the end of that was so exciting. But again, it's moot because, Johns is gone and whatever is dead.
Fables they are putting out in compendiums, which are the big, thick, soft covers like they did for Ex Machina, which those are really nice. And if you want to read the story without having to pay way too damn much money, that's a great way to buy Fables. One of my favorite series that didn't get any attention when it came out is coming out as a trade paperback, and that is Hard Time. Hard Time was in this weird little line that DC did where they wanted to do more realistic superheroes. And this was by Steve Gerber, where a teenager's powers erupt, they accidentally kill someone. He's tried as an adult because at the time, I don't know if Joe remembers it, but it was a real big thing where, no, teenagers must be tried as adults because they do this stuff when they're 16 and 17 because they know that when they turn 19, they're set free. So our justice system basically said, no, we're going to try teenagers as adults. So this kid's powers manifest. Somebody gets killed. He's tried as an adult and sentenced to life in prison. And the series is about him with powers in prison for the rest of his life. And because it's Steve Gerber, he's able to take that simple premise and twist it enough that the story is incredible. It was what? There was a 12-issue Act 1 and then a 7-issue second part because the sales never got good enough for it to continue on. But he did wrap it all up in the last issue. We're getting a trade paperback of that. We're also getting a trade paperback of one of the great miniseries going now, and that is Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Who Killed Jimmy Olsen, which is written by Matt Fraction and uses a lot of the Silver Age stuff in a modern context, and it's way fun. When the Lois Lane miniseries is collected, that one is way fun too. And then there's also Batman, 80 Years of the Bat Family, which is basically about the secondary characters, not Robin, not Batman, but all of the other characters around them. So yet another of the anniversary things. There's also going to be a deluxe edition of Batman number 127, which usually has a couple more stories and is a really nice hardcover. And then that's really about it for DC. IDW.
I am buying one thing and pointing out two. The one thing I'm buying, if you want to peruse yourself to page 138, The Book Tour by Andy Watson. It's a page-turning dark comedy in a brilliant retro style. Watches one man try to keep it together while everything's falling apart. And a couple art samples which look interesting. The fact that it's talks about a minor English writer embarking on a book tour to promote it, nothing going according to plan, and gradually turns into a nightmare. But now the police want to ask him some questions about a mysterious disappearance. 272 pages, $24.99, coming out in November. I figured, yeah, this looks like it might be kind of interesting. It's under the top shelf production of IDW, so that's probably what got my attention. Actually, was kind of the art. Well, and book, anything that says book. Anything for you, Cory, before I get to what I want to point out?
They're finishing up Batman the Max.
Yeah, so, that was one of them.
So there's a really cool cover for a book that reprints the first 3 issues.
Yeah, they've done this before. I think it was Kevin Smith's book with Black Cat.
Yes.
Or whatever, where it was so long since the first 2 or 3 had been published that they came out with kind of a catch-up for everybody. And so if you have not picked up 1, 2, or 3, here's your chance to do it. And then 4 or 5, I imagine, will be coming out. We'll probably imagine next preview.
Issue 4, 2 weeks later. Issue 5, 2 weeks later after that. There's a reason why I only buy Sam Keith stuff as trade paperbacks.
Yeah, and I've got 1 through 3 sitting down in my I thought it was finished pile. So I guess I'll take it out, and I'm glad I didn't read it. The only other thing I wanted to point out is if you are a fan of Goosebumps or were a fan of Goosebumps or have some kids who might like Goosebumps, they've got a couple miniseries coming out. My kids really loved them growing up. I don't know, Encyclopedia Brown was my go-to guy. But the comics are there, and, we really want to keep kids reading comics. And that's on page 110, and then on page 112, they have a couple of the collected editions together. So if you have some Goosebump fans in your family, you definitely want to be picking those up. Anything else for you?
Not really. Then over at Marvel.
Oh, Dynamite. Oh, wait, Marvel's in there too. Another 1 page. Look at it. I slipped right over you, Marvel.
Yeah, but Marvel gives you their booklet still.
Yeah, so I won't bitch too much. But you know me, I just like to bitch. All right, let me take a pause. I want to mark my spot. Close. Marvel. Okay, I'm ready. And I haven't got
All right. The X-Men X of Swords crossover begins.
I don't know what to make of this. I'm not big on crossovers, but I don't know.
It's Jonathan Hickman.
I know, but the thing is X Factor isn't, and so that's where it's like you go from X of Swords Chapter 1 to X Swords Chapter 2, and I'm like, it's kind of where you're losing me. I may just wait for the inevitable trade, or if it's going to be tons of crossovers, because on page 7 you see X of Swords Handbook, Captain Britain, Marvel Tales 1.
That just reprints old Captain Britain stories.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that may be. I'll wait for the book, because I'm reading the regular X-Men, and I've just decided. I think Hickman said it. You don't have to read it all, and this may be one I'll just kind of back out on. And if I'm mistaken, I can always pick it up at the source.
True Believers Month reprints a whole bunch of X-Men stuff that I've already read a few hundred times.
For me, the one again, the Captain Britain one.
Yeah.
I'll pick that one up. Everything else, yeah, I either bought it off the shelf, or in the case of the Havoc #1, I actually have reprints of that.
Magik #1. I want to point out that this must be one of Marvel's biggest books ever, because it's reprinted in the X-Men omnibus. It's reprinted in the New Mutants omnibus, and they're reprinting it here as well. So this must be the most important comic ever.
Which is cool, because when I read it, it sucked.
When I read it, it was like, well, that's some nice John Byrne art, but I really don't care. No, it was John Buscema. Sorry, John Buscema.
Are you jumping on Iron Man #1?
No.
Me neither. But I am thinking I'm going to pick up that Tales of Suspense 39 facsimile edition, because it's fun not only to see it in color like a real comic book, but also I love the ads in that. It's a lot of fun. So I will probably pick that one up.
Anymore, I either read it on Marvel Unlimited, or if I really like it, I buy a trade or a hardcover. Spider-Man hits issue 850.
And here is my bitch. I really, really hate it when you do this, Marvel. You are just fucking with us, and I'm so tired of it. Oh, we had Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, 4, 48, 850. And why? Well, it's followed by 851. Oh, Jesus Christ. Just one, or no, actually, edit that out. Shouldn't.
No, we don't know if it's going to be 850.
No, I meant the Jesus Christ. I don't want to piss people off.
Okay.
Good.
We don't know if it's going to be 851 or if it's going to be Spider-Man #50.
Oh, probably 50. But yeah, no, just stop. Stop it. I'll give you the 2000 variant covers just because we didn't complain about it back with Detective 1027. But just stop. It is such a friggin' headache to try to figure this stuff out. Cory, are you on the rise of Ultraman?
I don't even know who Ultraman is. They didn't show it where I was when I was a kid. So I've never known Ultraman.
He is an Ultraman-less. Black Widow's got another #1. How about that?
Yeah.
Adam Hughes cover.
Actually, of all the covers, I like the J. Scott Campbell one.
How about are you going to do Shang-Chi #105?
Let's see. Doesn't that tie into Empire?
No. This is actually
a
standalone miniseries. Yeah, probably because he was an Empire.
Buying it as a trade.
I will pick up Juggernaut on page 33 because it's 1 of 5, and Fabian, how do you say his name?
Iesaya.
Yeah, he's writing it, and I do like his writing.
And Ron Garney's art. Fabian's been showing some of Ron Garney's art, and oh man.
I should mention, when I mentioned about Black Widow 1, if you notice in Marvel's book, on the very, 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 very bottom, in yellow and black, yellow lettering, black background, order using February 20, blah, blah, blah. This is basically, it's not even a resolicitation. It's just kind of, hey, it's been a few months, but if you're interested, here's your chance to reorder it. So if you are interested, and especially if you're looking at the variant covers, take that code, the diamond code, with a February 20, and give that to your retailer, and he can get you on the list before this ships. So, and I thought that was very thoughtful of Marvel. They don't do it for their new stuff. So again, if you're looking at Empire number 6 of 6 and you want that variant cover by Tony Daniel, the Kray Skull variant, you're going to have to just go up to them and say, I want the Kray Skull variant. I don't know why I guess I do know why they can't put the diamond codes in here, because when they're busy publishing this thing, they probably don't know how many codes that'll be or what the actual code number will be.
Or it may also be where your retailer must order a certain number of copies to get it.
Well, it's that way with Black Widow too, but the problem is you don't know how many. If you ever get the order book, it's all in numerical order from 0001 to however many items are in Diamond previews that month, and you don't really know how many books the guys in front of you are ordering, so you can't assign that number. So it changes all the time. Especially if you decide you want to get Immortal She-Hulk number 1. I don't think I'm going to. How about you? I don't know. That's it for new series. Everything else that I kind of flagged, I noticed that little code on there, and it's things that have been resolicited.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question, because now we're in our favorite parts, the trades. Which of the covers, there's two I will probably, well, actually, I had to stop and think, because they're resoliciting the Infinity Crusade Omnibus, which I was on, but I ordered it using the April code, so I already have mine on order, which leaves me room this month to get the Moon Knight Omnibus. But now, Cory, which cover would you get? Would you get the original Sienkiewicz cover, or would you get that really cool splat cover?
This is a hard one because I always like to get the cover for the original, because it's based on the original comic. But man, that Stephen Platt cover is amazing, and he draws so infrequently that this may be the only art you see from him for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
He's also doing a cover for Infinity Crusade, even though he didn't do anything in Infinity Crusade. He just kind of drew the Moon Knight crossover, I think.
Actually, that was that's a cover reprint from Moon Knight.
Yeah.
So, because I remember buying those issues, they were super duper hot.
I have a beef, however, because you went from Infinity Crusade to Moon Knight. You skipped over Marvel Cosmic Universe by Donny Cates.
That's because I have all of them, but it's good reading.
I agree. However, Joe, take a look at how many pages there are.
480.
And how much is that book?
They want $100 for it.
Now, let's flip the page.
And it's volume 1.
Yeah. Let's flip the page. How many pages are in the Moon Knight Omnibus?
1,016.
And how much is it?
$125.
There is no way I am paying $100 for less than 500 pages in an omnibus. That's just crazy.
And that may be the name of our podcast, but never assume we are crazy.
Because most of the time, you can get hardcovers from Marvel, like the Secret Wars hardcover was around that many pages. There are some other hardcovers, and they go for around $50. They're charging $100 for this, or I could just pick up these hardcovers and be done with it for less. It's way overpriced. Moon Knight I'm picking up because the problem with the Moon Knight one, though, is it cuts off right before it gets good. Because it cuts off with Moon Knight number 20, and Moon Knight number 21 and through 36 was when Bill Sienkiewicz finally said, okay, I'm not going to draw like Neil Adams anymore. But these are solid stories. They didn't really fit in the Marvel Universe, especially if you read the Moon Knight series that Doug mentioned. It didn't cross over into any Marvel stuff, and it almost felt like its own little pocket away from everything. Which, when I was a kid, and this came out in the 70s, everything tied into everything. Moon Knight was one of the few books that didn't have a Spider-Man, Hulk, or somebody else cameo.
Ghost Rider, yeah.
On the next page is Savage Sword of Conan Original Marvel Years Omnibus number 4. I, of course, will be getting the Eric Norum cover. This reprints Savage Sword of Conan 45 through 60. More Roy Thomas, more John Buscema, Gil Kane. There are other artists there, but you buy this for the beautiful John Buscema art because this is the stuff he cared about. The most recent Invaders series has been all 12 issues, has been reprinted in a hardcover because it failed at 12 issues. And there's the Donny Cates. It has even more of the Guardians of the Galaxy for $34.99.
Yay!
In a hardcover.
Ooh.
Again, the Marvel Masterworks depressed me because I bought these off the stands. The Captain America is the story that took place right after Kirby left. And it's funny because they went to Steve Gerber and said, we want you to do a story that gives Steve Rogers personality. We don't know anything about him before he was Captain America. So he did a story, and they immediately went, no, that's not what we wanted, and retconned it away immediately.
Mm.
And then Spider-Woman was, a bunch of fill-ins. You always wonder why Spider-Woman didn't last. If you read it, it was almost like every issue was a fill-in until Chris Claremont took over.
Yeah.
We got really beautiful book that I'm not buying. That is The Eternals by Jack Kirby Monster Size. Those Monster Size books are the 2-foot-tall books. This reprints the entire Eternals. I'm buying the Eternals as a omnibus, so I don't need to buy it again as a monster size. They are reprinting the Chris Claremont Jim Lee omnibus. Empire's already... No, that's Road to Empire is going to be out as a trade paperback. Let's see. What were the ones that really jumped out at... Oh, they're back to reprinting Dawn of X in trade paperbacks. That makes me happy. I like buying it in that format. The Heroes Reborn, Avengers, and Iron Man are being reprinted. Which is weird because the what is it? The Avengers one actually went out of print and was going for stupid money for a while.
And these were, if you notice, the Avengers you probably would have ordered in February. The Iron Man one beneath it in April. So if you didn't order them, this is second chance month here. Anytime you see that little code, you know it's like directly across from it, Hellstorm Prince of Lies, which reprints Hellstorm Prince of Lies 1 through 11. But that's a new one. So if you're game for that, you do have to order it. Notice all these seem to be pushing to be shipped in October. Except for like some of those really, really big books.
I want to point out with Hellstrom, Raf Nieves was the co-writer of Tales from the Heart with, I can't remember Cindy's last name. But Raf was able to get a job at Marvel writing Hellstorm. And he freaked out, had a panic attack, didn't think he was good enough, and vanished after he'd written 3 issues, and Marvel could not get in touch with him at all ever again. Which is why you see Len Kaminsky come in and, okay, I guess I got to figure out what to do now. If you bought the Hellstrom Omnibus, you've already got all this as well as Warren Ellis's stuff. So, let's see, a new trade paperback, Road to Venom, which reprints all the stuff leading up to Spider-Man's black costume becoming Venom. I actually read this wonderful thing online where a former Marvel editor was talking about, it was Gregory Wright, talked about how the character creation and how, what was it? Rob Liefeld said, nope, Todd McFarlane created Venom. And Gregory Wright said, well, wait a minute, because this kid created the black costume. Mike Zeck created what it looked like. Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz made it an alien. This person made it this. David Michelinie did this. Boom, 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 boom. And then when you get to it, did Tom McFarlane create Venom, or did he just grab the stuff that was already there based on what David Michelinie told him to draw, and he amped it up? So character creation gets really, really messy. And in that thread, it was funny because Rob Liefeld, again, talked about how he created Cable all by himself. And Louise Simonson chimed in and said, well, I get a check every so often that proves that I had something to do with it. But here you get all the stuff that led up to Venom. Basically, it's all the black costume stuff. The Epic Collection of New Mutants confuses me, Joe.
The Epic Collection. I've already put my previews away for Marvel.
New Mutants Epic Collection Cable, Volume 7 in the New Mutants. It cuts off with New Mutants number 94.
Yeah, which is weird because there's only like, what, 6 more issues and it's over?
There's 6 issues left.
Really, Marvel? Really?
And also the Black Widow has a second Epic Collection, which reprints all the Black Widow stories up through pretty much the mid-90s. No, wait, the Journey into Mystery was mid-90s. That was after the Heroes Return. The Epic Collection of Captain America, Monsters and Men, reprints the JMD Matthias Mike Zeck issues, which are fantastic. And that's really about it that I am jumping on. Marvel had a lot of stuff. However, if you go through, there's a lot of series that just haven't come back yet, which I don't know what's going on with that. Dynamite.
I got nothing new from them.
I don't think I do either.
Not even the Rob Liefeld homage covers.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of Rob Liefeld homage covers, which, okay. He's not working with them, but okay. Good for you. Boom!
Boom, chugga-lugga-lugga. I got some Boom stuff. The first one is have you go all the way to page 174. We'll only find them when they're dead. They dropped the name of Something is Killing the Children, which was a big hit for them. It reads, Captain Magik and the crew of the Vihan 2, or Vihan, harvest resources from the giant corpses of alien gods found on the edge of human space, while the autopsy ships race to salvage the meat, minerals, and minerals that sustain the human race. Magik sees an opportunity to finally break free from the system by being the first to find a living god. But, anytime you have an obsession like that, it'll push his crew into danger in the darkest reaches of space and face, unless the rogue agent on their trail can stop them first. So, number 1, I imagine this will be a book, but I think I might pick this one up and give it a shot.
There was nothing from Boom that jumped out at me.
Well, let me point out I think that was it for me, just the one. And again, I buy Red Mother, something Alienated, the last issue. Even though for some reason I'm missing issue 5, I didn't order it. I'll have to just pick it up wherever. So, okay, what's next?
Everything else.
All right. Let me.
By the way, this month's issue of Cerebus, Batvark Penis.
Hey, Dave, he's always on a hot trend. Oh, let's see. I'm just going to point out, I'm not buying it because I bought it already. On page 208, under Action Lab, our good buddies Steve Bryant and Mark Stegbauer and Jason Millett. Their trade paperback, Ghoul Scouts, Night of the Unliving Dead. Fun stuff. We've talked about not only their series in the past, but had them on a show way too long ago. So definitely something to check out if you're looking for something fun to buy this month.
For me, I jump all the way to page 233. Yep, the Archie pages. Yeah, again, they're still not doing Afterlife with Archie or the regular Archie comic, or everything's late. But the best of Archie books, volumes 1 through 3 in a box set, $24.99. These are really fun books. Let's see, it's 1,200 pages of Archie reprints. I like their big, thick reprint books. The Best of Archie books were really nice. And while I wouldn't say it's the best of, it is a good representation of Archie over the last 80 years. The Archie Milestone Digests are something I like as well because they tend to pick out stories that are important. And that was it for them. I do find it really weird that Aspen Comics is printing copies of Spider-Woman with new art by Michael Turner. Isn't he dead? And isn't Spider-Woman a Marvel book?
Aspen's been doing variant covers for them for years.
It's just very strange.
Get up on the trend here. Back on page 204 under Abstract Studios, I'm going to point out 5 Years Omnibus graphic novel. Again, they took what's happened is he's taken all of his properties, Rachel Rising, I can't remember the name of the one with the monkey, Strangers in Paradise, and basically they're all in the same universe. And this story I've been reading slowly, but I think I'm just going to pick up the omnibus and be able to read it all at once. And you have a choice, softcover or hardcover. They're only $10 apart.
If you go to page 253, they are resoliciting Atlas at War, which is Atlas at War collects 50 hard-hitting stories from Atlas Comics, a company that became Marvel Comics, and published more war titles than anyone else in the industry between the years 1951 and 1960. Comic historian Dr. Michael J. Vassalero has chosen the best of the best, and you know he's going to do the best job because this guy he wrote The Secret History of Marvel Comics that delved into the pulps before. He's probably the historical authority on timely Atlas and Martin Goodman stuff. So this book is it's solicited again. You've got another chance to get it. On the same page is a book from Crown Books called True Believer, The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee. And it goes into the business aspect of what happened with Stan after he left Marvel, or after Marvel kind of... He had a lifetime contract with Marvel, and during the bankruptcy, they terminated it. So Stan started Stan Lee Media, which became a complete train wreck. This goes into that.
I was curious about this one because it sounds like this guy is more like Hatchet against Stan. I guess I'd just reading the description, it just sounds like, everything's Stan Lee's fault. And, from what I understand of some of the Stan Lee media, it wasn't really Stan's fault.
Right.
But again, I don't know if
I'm going to wait on this one because Stan Lee Media, basically Stan put his name on it. And it was part of the whole venture capital crap that happened in the 90s and early 2000s. And it's part of it's going to be interesting because Clifford Meth, who you may know from Comic Book Confidential, but he's also a guy who works behind the scenes. He's the one who worked behind the scenes for Gene Colan to get money. He worked behind the scenes for other comic artists to get money. And he worked behind the scenes to get the people who were in charge of Stan Lee the last few years of his life arrested for elder abuse. So I'm going to wait and see what Clifford Meth says about this book because he knows where the bodies are buried. He's a fantastic, I don't even want to call him a fan, a supporter. He's the guy who worked with Marvel when Dave Cockrum was diagnosed with terminal cancer to figure out ways to get him money for his medical costs while he was on hospice care. So Clifford Meth is the guy that I kind of listen to when it comes to this sort of thing. It's kind of like how I listen to Dr. Michael Vassalero when it comes to Marvel history. Stan put out an autobiography in the late 90s, early 2000s, the one Excelsior. And he actually went through and corrected. Okay, Stan got this wrong. He got this wrong. This timeline is not correct. He got these dates wrong. Blah 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 blah. And when Peter David started working with Colleen Duran on their Stan Lee book, I actually suggested to both of them, please talk to Dr. Michael Vassalero. He's the expert. He knows this stuff.
Speaking of Peter David, back on page 209 under Action Lab, again, I don't know if it's Action Lab. It's not the Danger Zone, but you'll see Peter David's Artful trade paperback. Peter David wrote it. Nicole DeAndrea, I guess co-wrote it because they're both there. Laura Newbert. It's an adaptation of the Artful novel by award-winning writer and comic book legend Peter David. It's an Oliver Twist spin-off story starring the Artful Dodger as our reluctant hero. And as you know, Peter David's in that rare strata. He could write the phone book, and I'd buy it. Well, put my money where my mouth is. I'm definitely going to pick this
Joe,
one up.
do you work tomorrow?
I do not.
You will want to go to your computer, or you can even bring up YouTube on your TV, because tomorrow Peter David is being interviewed by Mark Evanier on his Tuesday night interviews on the YouTubes. Cool. And Mark Evanier is also planning a whole bunch of panels and stuff that he would have done during the San Diego Comic-Con. So there's even going to be a group panel on the YouTubes.
Cool.
So let me pull it up here. If you go to newsfromme.com, there's all of the stuff about the Comic-Con International being at home. Let's see. Tuesday, July 7th, starting at 7 Pacific time, newsfromme.tv, or on the YouTubes if you subscribe to Mark Evanier. There's his interview. Mark Evanier is doing webcasts interviewing people he knows, like his friend, the eminent writer of fantasy comics and neat stuff, Peter David. His interview with Sergio Aragonés is one of the most fascinating online interviews I've ever watched. He just did an interview with Leonard Maltin, which was more fun than it ever should have been. So jump all over that stuff, kids. I'm very disappointed that Fantagraphics has nothing that I'm interested in.
I did see that Aftershock had a trade I was interested in. This is one of those I was curious about, but I'm going to wait and buy it as a trade. On page 218, shoplifters will be liquidated. The largest retailer in the world requires the best trained loss prevention staff, and security officer Nussbaum defends the company interests at any cost. Life, human rights, rational thoughts are all secondary concerns. As an ex-retailer, I wish that were true. However, his world is upended when he finds a society living under the retail outlet, culture that challenges his notions about consumerism and sense of self. Is he ready for the message? See Patrick Kildon, Stefano Simone, writer-artist combo. I am definitely picking this one up. I know I passed on it as a trade, but this one definitely looks like it'd be a lot of fun to read.
Also, just so you know, on page 267, there's a new Dogman book coming out. The last one sold 5 million copies, and I always bring it up when people say comics are dead.
Yep. Well, I'll just kind of casually toss out on page 262, if you're a fan of Frank Cho, Flesk Publication has The Art of Frank Cho, a 20-year retrospective softcover. I don't think I'm buying it, but if you're a Frank Cho fan. And
the geeky redhead pinup girl will be buying it.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's a huge fan of Frank Cho.
I don't know. We're not friends with her anymore on Facebook.
She left Facebook for Instagram.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just surprised because there were so many people left on. Why defriend us?
Oh.
I thought she liked us. Oh, well.
Page 281, however, has a book that I have been waiting for literally for decades.
Well, the Tick Color series, The Complete Works, has been out already. It's in the Star System.
Right next to it, though, is Trots and Bonnie from Sherry Flanagan. Trots and Bonnie was a comic strip in National Lampoon that was amazing. There were so many great comic strips in National Lampoon. Gahan Wilson's Nuts, which has been put out as a book. the Appletons, but Trots and Bonnie was the one that's never been reprinted, and whenever anybody asked her about it, she said she was waiting for someone to put together the best package. So someone finally has. National Lampoon was the home of some of the funniest humor writing, but also the best cartoonists. One of the greatest was Trots and Bonnie, a comic strip that has followed the adventures and mishaps of the guileless teenager Bonnie and her wisecracking dog Trots. Bonnie stumbles through the mysteries of adulthood as Flanagan explores the harsh realities of American life. Dating, sex, politics, and violence are all confronted with fearlessness and outrageousness. This is a fantastic, fantastic series, and having it all in one place is going to be so, so great. I think we don't understand now how important National Lampoon was those first 6 years it was published, because the stuff that came after was so mediocre and the way it died was just so sad and pathetic. But the first 6 years of National Lampoon, it literally became the comic Bible, to the point where when NBC decided to do a late night sketch comedy show, they basically snapped up as many people from the National Lampoon as they could to create Saturday Night Live. The National Lampoon Radio Hour was first started by Michael O'Donoghue, who was the head writer on Saturday Night Live. And then when he left, the producer was John Belushi, who you may have heard of.
I never last.
National Lampoon's Vacation actually came from a National Lampoon story. Animal House was a story. Caddyshack was basically the editor and head writer of National Lampoon after Animal House, saying, we're going to make the best comedy movie we can. So basically, a lot of your 80s slob versus snob stuff came from National Lampoon. Saturday Night Live was born out of National Lampoon. And Trots and Bonnie was one of their best things they ever did. It's great to finally get it all collected in one place. What else have we got, Joe?
Well, as long as you're on the page there, NBM's got a couple books that I'll point out. If you're a Willie Nelson fan or you're an Elvis fan, they got a couple of graphic novel hardcovers that kind of cover the life and times of these people. So for all you Willie Nelson fans, Elvis fans, or if you have someone you know that likes Willie Nelson or Elvis, these are really cool books to pick up. The only other thing I got is, if we're going to jump forward to 314. Now, I don't buy a lot of Doctor Who comic books. I usually wait to pick them up in the trades, but this is only 2 issues, and it has my favorite Doctor Who character, the Daleks, in it. Doctor Who Time Lord Victorious. It's a thrilling new adventure for the 10th Doctor. Sees the shocking return of his deadliest enemies, the Daleks, but things aren't what they seem. Time is all wrong, and something is coming that terrifies even the Daleks. So they said the 2 oversized issues kicking off the BBC's highly anticipated multi-platform Doctor Who epic Time Lord Victorious. So I'm going to maybe pick up the first couple ones, and then if it's that good, I might just bow out and wait, because they're going to do a trade eventually.
Well, there's only 2 issues, so if you buy the first
But this is the beginning of the epic. So the Time Lord Victorious, my assumption is it's going through other books and not just this. So I might be wrong, but we'll find out.
I give PS Art Books a lot of crap, and I should, because their prices are stupid and outrageous. But they are reprinting a couple of things that I think they're doing at a decent price. Back on page 303, they are reprinting It Rhymes with Lust, which is a book that I have talked about a few times. It was the first graphic novel, except it wasn't called a graphic novel. It was published as a paperback book, and it was an attempt to... paperback books were really big in the 50s, and it was an attempt to do a comic as a paperback book. It is a really good noir story written by Arnold Drake, who went on to create Deadman, and drawn by Matt Baker, who beautiful women. He is the original, what they call good girl artist, and what it is, man, he is a good girl artist. I've read this before. Dark Horse reprinted it at the original size. These guys look like they are reprinting it at the original size as well, 6x8. It's going to be $18.99, which is a good price for it. It's only a couple bucks more than Dark Horse charged for it. But then on the next page is one that's another of these graphic novel books that's never been reprinted. Anarcho, the Dictator of Death. This one by Otto Binder. Joe, do you know who Otto Binder was? Joe?
I would have to marvel about that, Captain.
He wrote tons of Captain Marvel stories. The artist I don't know, Al Carrero, but Otto Binder wrote a ton of Captain Marvel stories. He also wrote Superman stories. He wrote science fiction. This is, let's see, a complete adventure story in comic book form. This one shot is the adventure of Radar, the international policeman. Let's see, familiar from Master Comics, but the sole cover goes to the villain, Anarcho. This is another one-shot that was done. It's only 52 pages, regular comic size, but they're only charging $13.99, and they're publishing it as a softcover book. So I'm actually excited to get this one because I've never read it, and I hear it's actually very, very good for its time. Let's see what else I have marked here in the... back issue 122 about the new Teen Titans with a Perez cover.
I know.
Never before published Perez cover from 1981. Ew. So I have my own theory about why the Teen Titans fell apart. Partly it was Perez leaving, but partly Marv Wolfman always says that it's because he had burnout after Crisis on Infinite Earths. But when I went back and read it, at the end of the story that introduces Jericho and Robin becomes Nightwing, he had wrapped up every plot line he had from issue 1. He'd wrapped them all up. And he hadn't really put any thought or effort into what happened afterward. So he had all that momentum going in, and then when he had to come up with new storylines for the characters, he was in the middle of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it's kind of hard to come up with 7 new plot lines when you're doing something that big. So that's why I think the new Teen Titans kind of fell apart toward the end. And that was it for me for comics. However, let me flip this book.
Oh no, he's going to whip this out.
In the Funko stuff, there are some Pride heroes, including a Batman Rainbow, which is a very cool figure. Then there's, what were the other Rainbow figures? A Hello Kitty Rainbow Pride and a SpongeBob SquarePants Rainbow Pride. However, that's not the one where I would really like my money to go. There's Final Fantasy VII. They have new toys, which are just gorgeous. And then on page 3 is the Final Fantasy Polygon figure blind box, which annoys me because I hate blind boxes. No, I just want to buy one of each of the figures. I don't want to buy it and go, ooh, I wonder what's in this. So it does look like you could get the whole thing for $64, but they're the Final Fantasy VII figures. Ooh. I'm a big Final Fantasy VII fan. And that's it for previews.
Good for you.
You know who still has more stuff, even though we're done with previews, Joe?
Our sponsors? These guys?
Yes. Believe it or not, kids, this here podcast has sponsors. And that sponsor, since day one, is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best, bar none, web host in the whole known universe. And if you need a website, head on over to DreamHost.com, put in code KRAYZ, that's KRAYZ, and get $20 off your first year. Now, if you would like to advertise here on any of the Solitary Rose Network podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. Also, head on over to eBay and look for user Crazy, Krayz. That's Joe Crazy Writer, who's always telling us about the eBay in every episode of Crazy Comics and Stories. If you would like to contact us, you can do so. You can give us a call at 952-856-0519. Leave a message and we'll play it on the show. Or you can send us an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And me, because I've got all of these podcasts that I do. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is filled with all kinds of audio goodness. First, there's Crazy Comics and Stories. It's been going since 2010. It drops every Monday, and it has me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and Joe Crazy Writer talking comics, shenanigans, and whatever we're freaking and geeking about. Every Monday morning. It's been going since 2010, and it's available at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. Also on that same feed is the Solitaire Rose Podcast, which is me, again, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, doing interviews, talking about comics history, pretty much talking about whatever I want to talk about. We've also got Solo Joe, where Joe Crazy Writer does a solo podcast, and he hasn't done one in a while, so kick him in the shins to get him started. We also, on that same feed, have Solitaire Rose Series and Review, where we do DVD commentary of older comic book series. That's all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. I also do a podcast with Wolfie B. Bad at badadvice.solitairerose.com, where we take listener questions and give them bad advice. There's also Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. There's also Fantastic Forecast, where myself and Adam Vermillion are going through the entire run of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. And if you think that I'm on all of these podcasts, you're wrong, because Scrabbling Across the West is at scrabbling.solitairerose.com, where musician Dave Cofell and his wife Stephanie travel across America and then sitting down to play Scrabble and talk about the day. That's at Scrabbling Across the West, scrabbling.solitairerose.com. There are always more podcasts at the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network. Be there. Aloha. And I even stopped by the comic shop and got the Marvel Universe magazine, which has previews of all the stuff coming out over the next few months. And I really like that they do these. Even, here's all the stuff that led up. Here are the trade paperbacks you need to read and buy before going into Empire. And there's a whole bunch of stuff about Jack Kirby's Eternals. And well, while I'm looking through this, Joe, what's going on the eBays?
All sorts of stuff. Not that I had it ready because I wanted to hear more about your podcasting. But, see, I told you I could say that with a straight face. No, I've just been... Cory, what's the number one thing I tell you before you sell a comic book or put something up?
Wash your hands.
Well, I wear gloves, but that's a different subject. Number one thing.
Grade it?
Nope. What did I spend 2 years doing with my collection before the Great Purge of, was that 18?
Read it.
No.
No.
God, he never listens. Nope. The question is, look it up. Cory, how much would you suspect Scooby-Doo Team Up number 2 would be worth?
Look it up.
I'll give you a hint. It's the one that has Batman and Ace the Bat Hound teaming up against the Scarecrow.
About $100.
Not far off. How about $40?
Wow.
How about number 5? I'll give you a hint. Number 5 is got Scooby-Doo Team Up with Wonder Woman.
At 30.
Nope, 50. But
really?
You're close. Yeah, it's weird because I always knew number 12 was big, although it's since calmed down because that had I think Harley Quinn in it. But I was looking at some of these prices. I mean, number one, $10. Number two, 38. Number three, 25. Number four, 4. Number 6, just crazy. And I was just going to sell them as a set. And I figured, oh, nobody's got a set out there, hard to find. But then I started looking, and some of these prices are just weird. And these are prices that people bought them at, not just what they're asking. Because I'm a bit of an eBay hound. Guy's got his at $49. Well, mine's probably going to go up for $39.99. I've been scanning pictures all day.
$39.99.
Or even sometimes, like, okay, you take a hot property like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you cross it over with Ghostbusters, and you make a bunch of variant covers. I found out there's a variant cover number 3, which has one of the turtles with the positron glider on his back, going for insane money. The cheapest one I found was going about $60. There's people asking over $100 for this thing. Hey, and guess what? I got one. But as I've read this and I've decided it does not make the cut, it's going to be on the eBays, probably by the time this show drops. I mentioned earlier, if you've got cross-company crossovers, especially ones that will never be reprinted, Cory, I hope your JLA Avengers books are in a safe spot. They're going about $70 for the set. That doesn't even cut the trade. I don't have
the regular comic. I just have it's not really an omnibus, but it's an absolute.
Oh, the absolutes. Yeah. Oh man, a sealed one's going over 1,000. Even open ones, 300, 400, 500. Even that trade paperback I sold a while back, it's up in the 300s. These are books that, until Marvel and DC realize there's money on the table to be reprinting this stuff, they're just going to go up and up. I mentioned before Conan grew. Same reason. Conan's gone. It's never going to be reprinted. It's just crazy. Not everyone is gone up, but I mean, if you want to be a speculator in comics, go look for these cheap company crossovers especially if somebody's lost the license. I'm not talking like X-Force Youngblood, because those guys still have the license, although it's an intercompany crossover. DC versus Marvel are going insane. But what am I selling? Well, I'm glad you asked. Go to Crazy, Krayz on the eBays, and just mention you heard me on this here podcast, or even if you got one of them flyers I sent you. This is your first time on the show, welcome. If you see anything you like, send me a quick note. I'm willing to make a deal because I'm in a bind. I'm way behind. I'm willing to make a deal. I'm not going to jump up on a Hickory post and tell you what, but I will tell you, come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I talk about
bubbles with our chocolate milk. No.
No, not where I talk about how I've got 5 days off and I'm going to be drinking on at least one of them. No, it's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Let's see. Hate to say. I'm not sure what that is response to. I'll have to think about it.
You must hate something and you're going to say it.
A common complaint of me. I just can't read my handwriting. I am freaked out at work because what they did is as you know, I've been on this standby leave, which means I basically have to stay at home because if they need me at work, they will call and bring us in. Well, apparently they cut too many people back on over the 4th, so TSA activated their standby leave. So from Thursday the 2nd through Monday the 4th, Monday the 6th, they recalled everybody. I mean, if you were on annual leave or you had reason that you couldn't come in, like some of my buds are dealing with sick relatives and things like that. But, so I went in and promptly went home. Well, not really. I did hang around the first day because I figured, I might as well stay till 8. There's nothing going on. Chris is stuck at work here at home, and this way I'm out of her hair, so to speak. On Friday, I didn't mind hanging because there was no other lead They all took the day off or called in sick or whatever, which is interesting. Saturday, I left by 2:00. It was just, it was dead. There was nothing going on. It's July 4th. Why did you call everybody in? I'm freaked on this for a couple of reasons. First off, I've been working in a team where I've only been working with anywhere from 2 to 3 people. And yeah, we work, but it's pretty slow still. We're not working the way we had been. But now I'm working with everybody. So that means I'm mixing it up with people I haven't seen. There's reports of people having COVID. No names. We don't know who. So now suddenly I'm mixing it up with everybody. So my chance of catching this is a lot higher. I've talked with a number of people. You know how, Cory, you have people who, well, yeah, you're either, okay, I believe the right wing, I believe left wing, I believe the center. But then you have people who don't believe, they work it. They're like policy wonks. They don't talk because they've read it or they heard it or they saw it. They live it. You know, I don't know if you know any people like that. I talked with one of them, I mean via Facebook, and he's like, doesn't matter. COVID is so freaking catchy, you're going to catch it. It's almost impossible to get rid of it, especially when you have people, you know, hanging at the beach or going to the bar or just refusing to wear masks or whatever. It's just, there's no way to stop it. There's no way to keep it from running. And these aren't your right wing, left wing. I believe them. I don't believe them. These are guys who are in the field studying this stuff. What do they call them? Virologists? Guys who study viruses?
Yeah, virologists.
Yeah, I mean, they're explaining to me about things like the difference between like aerosol-borne and airborne, which is means the virus lives in particles of water, which you get from speaking, breathing, sneezing. And everybody's guilty of doing one of those three. Whereas it's air particle, which means it survives on dust and dirt in the atmosphere. One of them, you can wear a mask and be fairly well protected. Particle, you have to wear one of those N95 masks because no mask is going to stop it. And these are things that aren't really talked about when everybody's blathering on and on about whether they believe COVID is fake or not. But their whole thing is it really is irrelevant what you do because you're going to catch it. It's that damn contagious. And even today on the news, you know, I made a mistake of watching and they're talking, well, places are upticking again. And it's not that there's an uptick because, again, you can survive this. There's running out of hospital beds, especially in the hot zones like Florida or California, Arizona that decided to open up. So it's just sad. I mean, it's weird when you watch the map of the United States about all the places that are upticking, and Minnesota's not one of them, which is kind of cool because we have a governor who's taking a lot of flack for being kind of hardcore on opening things. So the other thing with work, and I suspect this is just people being stupid, too many people like, hey, I'm off. I'm going up to the lake for the weekend. It's like, no, you're not off. You're on standby. Well, this is their chance to play. I mean, I've always known the standby system would be called. This is their chance to do it. And I'm pretty sure they have a list and they're checking it twice. Who came in, who didn't come in, who called off. So and when I went to work again, everybody's got their own political theory. Why did they call us in? Why did they call us in? And the best I heard is that they want to keep you going through the checkpoint fast. They don't want you to have to stop and linger. So that's kind of freaky, you know, because now I'm like, well, geez, did I get exposed? I saw a lot of people from the AM. To the people that know that they were exposed to this one person who had COVID, did he catch it at work? Did he come to work? So far, everybody, we've only had like 5 cases at Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's been like over hundreds at some of the bigger airports, up to 500, I think, in Atlanta. So people are like, hey, why don't you come out here or come out there? And I'm like, you know what? I'm high risk. I think I'm just going to sit here. But that's my geeking. Cory, what are you freaking on?
You're talking about the being on call. When I worked at the movie theater, there was nothing I hated more than being on call. Nothing I hated more. Because It was okay. You would call in and they would tell you if they needed you or not, but you had to be willing and able to come in at any point during that. They could call you, let's say you're on call from noon to 8. They could call you at 6 and say, all right, we need you to come in. So even though you'd call at noon, they go, yeah, we don't need you today. They could still call at 6 and go, yeah, we need you. I understand economically why they did that, because, hey, if this movie takes off, we will need more people. But we don't think it will be a big hit. So we don't think we will need a lot of people working at the theater. But for me, it was, and I actually told them, stop putting me on call, because when you put me on call, that means even if you don't need me at the beginning, you need me later, that means I can't take a shift at the group home that night or day. So I'm trading guaranteed pay for possible pay. And that's just not fair to me. Because if they call and go, hey, can you work Monday, blah, 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 I have to go, no, I might possibly have to work at the movie theater. And there were some supervisors who understood that and some who didn't. And it's one of the reasons why, there was a teenager there, and I will always remember this discussion. There was a teenager there who had made it up to assistant manager, which was, next to nothing. Okay, you get $1 extra in pay, and you don't have to sweep floors. And he did all these things, and he said, this place would fall apart without me. And I said, dude, I'm going to let you know something. You make minimum wage. No, I don't. I make 50 cents above minimum wage. Okay, you make 50 cents above minimum wage. You know what minimum wage means? It means they would pay you less if they could, but legally they're not able to. They would replace you in a heartbeat for someone cheaper, and they will at some point. There will come a point when it's easier and cheaper for them to get someone else. And you have seen it with, someone asks for an extra day off and they're not here anymore. Or someone gets sick and isn't able to make it for a few shifts and they're not here anymore. All of us are expendable. This is a minimum wage, low labor job. And what happened was 6 months later, I remember it was during one of the avian flu or swine flu or something. He got the flu and was out for 2 weeks. And when he came back, said, well, you have to reapply for your job. Well, I've got job protection because of blah, blah, blah. No, you don't. You're part-time and you haven't been here a year. FMLA does not apply to you. We let you go and you need to reapply for your job.
Nice.
And that's why all these theaters are like, oh, we're not going to be able to make it because of blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? You don't pay anybody a living wage anyway.
And you're treating them like shit.
You treat them like crap. Maybe it's time for you to go away. That's the first thing I am freaking on. The second thing I am freaking on, 4 weeks ago, WWE found out that some of their wrestlers had COVID-19. And they were shocked by this because we've been doing checks on them. Well, Mike Johnson at PW Insider dug into it, and you know what the testing they do was? They take their temperature before they come in. Let me tell you a little secret about COVID-19. When you get it and you're shedding virus, you don't have a fever or anything else during the incubation period, which is up to a week. Because of that, they actually had to do real testing. Today they did testing. 30 people tested positive for it. And there are wrestlers. Roman Reigns has not been there since the day before WrestleMania because he's a cancer survivor and has 2 kids, and he says, no, I'm not putting myself at risk. The other wrestlers have said, we're not coming in because we've got compromised immune systems. I've had multiple knee surgeries. I've had this. I'm not coming in because it's not a safe work environment. And WWE kind of is being pissy with them about it because Vince McMahon, close friend of Donald Trump, has been, if you watch the show, they never mention it. Vince McMahon is, it's just a cold. You get sick. You work through it. AEW, on the other hand, has had people who have not been able to come in because of compromised immune system. The owner, Tony Khan, has said, okay, completely understand. Just keep in touch with us. We're going to ask you to send in some videos and stuff from home so we can run them on the show, make sure people know you're still out there, but you get your full salary. If you're one of the crew and you get it, you get your full salary. There are wrestlers who haven't been on, Pac hasn't been on because he's trapped in England. He's sending a video every month or so. He's getting his full salary. Why? Because they're a respectable organization. Their owner is a billionaire who also owns a football team. So he knows, hey, we run a wrestling company. That's public relations. You don't treat people shitty because not just because it's a shitty thing to do, but because when you treat people shitty, it makes your company look bad. Vince McMahon looks terrible through all this. I mean, for the longest time, he just was, okay, we're doing it in the Performance Center. And there were times where people hadn't even done the temperature check, and he was like, get out there. And now they've got people sick. And they're in Jacksonville, Florida. And some of the people who live in New York, they're having trouble going home now because if you go from one of the hot spots to New York is making you quarantine for 14 days because they've been able to tamp down the outbreak there. They don't want it exploding again. The comic stuff that I'm a little annoyed about, you look at what Marvel's publishing, even into September and October, they're still not at full speed again. Comic shops need this money. And Joe has told the story over and over again about how Marvel cutting the number of books they sell killed his business. Marvel is still the #1 publisher in comics. If they're not going to be putting out books, for a fan, it's like, okay, maybe I get to save some money. Well, if you're not going to spend that money on other books, that means that comic shop is not getting that money. So let's say every week you spend $50 on comics, and with Marvel only putting out about a little over half of what they did, you're only spending $30. That means that's $20 your comic shop isn't getting from you every week. So that's $80 a month. That's a light bill. That's a water bill. That's a garbage bill. They got to figure out how to make that up. And let's say you got 100 subscribers. $80 each, that's $8,000 they got to figure out how to make up. I'm not one of those people who thinks Marvel should flood the market. But when you're not even putting out your regular books, you're hurting your shops. DC's hurting shops in their own way. Image is helping shops. Other companies are helping shops. And I do think it's great that these books are returnable. It's debatable on whether that's a help or not, but I think overall the books being returnable is helpful to shops who are in a lot of trouble. But Marvel not putting out, they're still gearing up. They could have kept putting out trade paperbacks during all this, and they haven't. Man, my throat is just shot from the last few days.
He's sick. Quarantine yourself.
No, it's not sick. It's the last thing I'm freaking on is at my office job. It's been insane. We are at our lowest point for employees that we've been since I've worked there. The call numbers haven't changed, but they've added 2 clients to our team because they're short all the way around. So on a normal day, I get about 30 calls. I've been getting between 60 and 70. And by the end of the day, my voice is like this. I sound like Lucille Ball after she smoked a carton of unfiltered Pall Malls. And they still go, well, we need this report done. When am I supposed to do it? You can do it between calls. And there was one person who was, you've got time between calls. And I sent them my tracking. And it's like, okay, my number of, here's what I worked. Here's my time without calls. Oh, well, you had 45 minutes. However, you need to remember, I get 2 15-minute breaks that are counted in that. That means between all of my calls today, I've had 15 minutes. I haven't even had time to read my email. We're that busy. So it's really been stressful, and the heat does not help. So, Joe, what are you geeking on?
Road trip. Chris is, my beloved wife is also having working pains, working from home. And, even today they're like, well, we're calling everybody into the office. I said, why? Not enough people in the city got COVID? Sorry, I'm a little paranoid. But anyways, we didn't go on 4th of July because I was working, but we did take a quick road trip, and it was one of those things where we had planned to do something and it just kind of fell apart. And right now in Minnesota, it's I think right now it's 90 degrees outside with like 300% humidity, which most Minnesotans don't deal well with. So Chris had gotten her AC fixed in her car, and I thought, well, let's take a road trip. So I thought, what's the one place I love to go to? Cory, tell me.
Comic shops.
Well, of course. But what's the one place Chris loves to go to?
Wine places.
And guess how many wine places are between here and Nerding Out in Rochester?
All of them.
At least 3. I would have included Books Review, the other shop we visited when we took a run to Rochester, but he closes on Sunday. So I thought, okay, here we go. We got 3 wineries, and then I'll hit Nerding Out. And then maybe we'll do like we did, go over to the Highway 61 and just drive the beautiful drive home. So we took a run. The first place we stopped was down in Cannon River, the Cannon River Winery, 421 Mill Street West in Cannon Falls, Minnesota. And of course, you can look online, Cannon River Winery. Really nice place. They do a great job with social distancing. The tables are far apart. They got outdoors things. It's right next to, I think it must be a tributary to Cannon River, just some beautiful waterfalls, hotter than Dickens. So we were actually indoors with this one, and a lot of different flavors. I actually found one that I liked. I can't remember the name of it. Might have been the Gunflint Trail. Either way, we bought a couple bottles, had some wine, so it was kind of fun. Second one we headed to was kind of out, if you say out in the middle of nowhere, it's probably middle of farmland, but it's called the Asplund, I should have asked them, Aspelund Vineyard. And this is located at 9204 125th Street in Kenyon, Minnesota. How did we find it? Well, first of all, I found it online by just typing in wineries in Minnesota. But also, we just used, once we went to the first winery, Chris understood where we were going. So we just put in this, let the Google GPS or whatever, the nice lady guided us to it. This one was kind of fun because not only is it a winery, but it's a, how do you say it? Peony gardens. They sell plants and flowers and things, and it's the garden sits on several acres, and you can come in and perennials. That's what I'm trying to say. Peony gardens, because they're plants that pop up every year. And we came just for the wine. The indoor was closed, so they sat us outdoors in the shade. However, even in the shade at 90 degrees with 90% humidity, oh, was it oppressive? And not to mention you're now drinking alcohol. So that really took the wind out of our sails. And, we bought I think I bought a bottle of blueberry wine from them because I like the fruit wine. Chris didn't see anything she liked or what she tasted, because they always have, like, you can have a sampler, like anywhere from 4 to 6 different 3-ounce shots of the wine. And the one place we mentioned first, the Cannon River Winery, they actually had the same wine, and they served one room temperature, one chilled, and we tried it, and it really a different flavor. I mean, just these tricks of the wine that Chris knew, but I didn't know. It was just fun to sample that. But yeah, we were pretty much both worn out from sitting outside, and we just kind of, what are we going to do now? It's like, well, I guess we'll just kind of meander back. And we didn't, because what we ended up doing is, as we drove around, we got our second wind, and we just kind of got to Highway 61 and we drove up near Treasure Island. We checked out the view by the nuclear plant down there, Prairie Island. Drove north, checked out some different parks. I'm trying to find the Spring Lake Park Reserve. I couldn't tell you where it is. Google it. But it's all along the Mississippi River Trail. I've spent a little time in Hastings. They have a wonderful park there. And the Spring Lake Reserve and the Hastings, there's this huge path. And I think it goes from Red Wing all the way up to St. Paul. Just a trail. You could walk it. And there were a lot of people out there. But when we were out at the reserve, we got out, we looked at some of the pictures, took a few shots of the river, and we just got back in the car because it was too much. And while we were doing this, we did notice, I think you guys got nailed with some storms while we were down south.
Nothing big. We got some storms, but they didn't leave enough rain to bother anything.
I know we got a flash flood warning in St. Paul, but that was because I think one storm dropped in like a couple hours, 2 inches of rain. But it was real spotty and peppery. But we're driving and we're looking at the dark clouds and then the anvil shapes. So that was kind of fun. Just a quick day out. And I told Chris, I said, you've got more vacation time than me. I keep getting this weird standby stuff. Let's take a week off and do some more trips. Because I heard there's some comic shops down in Mankato, if you know what I mean. Back at work, as I mentioned, I did get a chance to do some reading. I read the Warren Ellis, Derek Robertson Transmetropolitan Book 2 with an introduction by Sir Patrick Stewart. And I tell you, this one dealt with the election that Spider Jerusalem was covering. And you could have sworn that Warren Ellis was writing about today. And this book came, when the hell did this when was Transmetropolitan published? Back in the
late 90s, I believe.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Some things just don't change. Because like I said, I was reading this going, geez, I think he's writing about nowadays. I did pick up my first free comic book day book. The Source has them just out, so anybody can pick them up. I picked up the Overstreet Guide to Collecting. I had a nice Bill Tucci cover with Yosagi Yamoto.
Jimbo.
Jimbo, thank you. And I believe that's Painkiller Jane. Got a couple carrots in her pocket. But anyways, I just picked up one because I know eventually we're going to pick them all up from Tim whenever he gets them all put together. I mentioned earlier miniseries and stuff that I've been putting online. And as I'm doing that, I've decided I've got 2 boxes. I got boxes of things that I've read and I'm already ready to put online. And then I've got boxes of things that I've either not read or that I reread. And we'll probably talk about some of it next week because I believe we're due for a review show, aren't we, Mr. Strode?
I think we're getting near that point.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing. But these are some things that I reread that I probably won't cover. The Infinity Entity, that was a series that kind of fit in between the Thanos graphic novels that Jim Starlin was doing. And this one, of course, was done by Jim Starlin with Alan Davis as penciler, and it basically dealt with Warlock because he played a part in the Thanos things. And while I bought the miniseries, I'll probably put the actual comics online because I got the graphic novel. I pull this out every so often, but I always talk about my love for the comic series Love and Capes. And I've basically put a bunch of the variants I had up, which are rare. I mean, there aren't any on eBay, so I've got some up. But then I also have some of the comic runs, which I'm now going to be converting to book form. And again, not a lot on eBay, so I'll be looking for them at comic shops and stuff. But so far I've read book 1, Do You Want to Know a Secret? Book 2, which I read in comic book form, and I've since converted that to book form. And of course, after that was book 3, Wake Up Where You Are, which deals with, well, I don't want to talk about it. I always say go out and read it. But and then, of course, the last book, Happily Expecting or wherever. I've got it piled around here somewhere that I haven't gotten to. But these are fun to read, as is Astro City. Now that he's taking a pause, I got to I know I have all the Astro City books. I have no idea where they are. Every so often I get the urge to pull one down and read it, and I don't find it, but then I find one I haven't read in a while, and I reread Astro City Reflections, which, again, if he does half of what he's in his Marvel series that he's doing in the Astro City, I'm really excited to look forward to that. The last thing I read, actually I read a couple things. As you know, I'm reading Jason Aaron's Thor. Marvel, come on, let's get volume 3 out. And the one thing they didn't cover, one of the volumes reprints Thor's, which is I believe it's a 4-issue series that took place during Secret Wars, when Doom put together Battleworld, and the Thors were his enforcers. And Jason Aaron wrote it. And, of course, now that I look for my notes, I can't figure out where the hell I put them. But what had occurred to me is just how well Jason Aaron dove into the crossovers. And I don't know if that was by design or just like, hey, this is some way I can advance the stories. Because 2014, he did Original Sin. Now, in between issue 5 and 6, he did Original Sin, 5.1, 5.2, yada, 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 6 issues. And actually, that's how you look it up when you're trying to find it. But it dealt with Loki, Thor, and the 10th realm. The 10th realm being heaven. And what they did is they retroconned in Angela, who had been kind of floundering around the Marvel Universe because everybody's all excited. Ooh, she's coming over from the Spawn universe, and Neil Gaiman's bringing her. Let's see what happens. She shows up in Age of Ultron, and yeah, that's about it. But they made it so she's actually. Should we toss up a spoiler warning for guys like me who are first rereading this?
Sure.
All right. Well, basically, they discover that not only is she from heaven, but she is Thor's long thought dead sister. Okay, so that's 2 major events that Aaron's tied into: Secret Wars and Thor. And then he comes up with the unworthy Thor. This is after Original Sin, and Nick Fury said something to Thor which caused him unable to lift the hammer, which allowed, spoiler warning, Jane Foster to come along and lift it and become She-Thor, which I raved about.
Thor.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, they didn't want to redo too much because he couldn't name himself Thor anymore. He called himself Odin's son, which drove everybody nuts because Thor was actually his name. But then in the unworthy Thor, they tie into something because they find out that there is a hammer. This hammer belonged to the Ultimate Thor from the Ultimate Universe, who died in Ultimate End, the Secret Wars crossover, but his hammer broke reality and landed on, I believe, Asgard. Again, I haven't read the issues where I did see Vogstad pick up the hammer, but I don't know where it goes, but it just struck me how intricate these crossovers were and how amazing they were. Original Sin reintroduces the 10th realm, who plays a big part in War of the Realms, which has been talked about during his entire time. And then you got Thor's, where the hammer comes into play, and Unworthy Thor, where I just reread the first issue of the 5-issue series, where they discover, hey, there's another hammer. We need to go find it. Just amazing. And then I stop and I think about, and this is probably what my freaking was, the hate that a lot of people are saying about, well, they don't do comics the way I did. And nothing. I'm thinking, yeah, that's because if you allow a creator to sit back and really flex. How long was Jason Aaron on Thor?
Oh, well, it had to be like 7-8 years.
And I'm at the very beginning of it, having read bits and pieces, but not all of it, and I am just utterly amazed. Jason, you are now in the category of people, you could write the phone book, and I will buy it, because I am just gobsmacked between just reading your 2 graphic novels, the 3 crossovers. Just utterly amazing. So if you're not on board, if you've never read it, go get those graphic novels and pick them up. And I'm thinking by the time I get I read War of the Realms, and I was kind of, well, whatever, and I ignored most of the crossover. But I know, I'm hoping there's an omnibus with everything in it by the time I get to it, because I'm really going to want to read it. Of course, I'm still waiting for the Secret Wars omnibus. Ugh, telling you guys, I got money burning in my pocket. There's a radio station in town that uses the call letters of a long past radio station, WDGY. Heard a song on it the other day that tickled my memory, and that was the Ode to Billy Joel, which did I say Billy Joel? No, the Ode to Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
Yeah, Ode to Billy Joel. He jumped off his piano, which I've never seen him do, but I heard he did when he was young. No, Ode to Billy Joel. And of course, my computer just froze, so I can't tell you who done it. But I heard this song, and I was like, "Oh wow, that was a brain tickle, which I just have not heard in so long." Bobby Gentry wrote it, and it was just so much fun to have a song like that. Like, oh wow, I remember listening to this on a 45 long ago. Cory knew the answer, but on PBS, our local PBS is called, what do they call themselves? TBS? No, that's a superstation. The reason I'll look it up in a second, but they had a special under their Minnesota experience called First Avenue, Closer to the Stars, which was a history of First Avenue. It was bought by the gentleman who owned Finger Hut. And again, excuse me while I
whip this out.
No, I just got to wake up. The computer freezes while it sits there. Fingerhut.com ended up being quite a bit of he took apparently a place that sold like tiles and turned it into this huge catalog thing. It used to be you would get this catalog and you could send away for fine china and over 18 simple payments, pay it off, which is how they became so big. They're still around online, so you can look it up. I'm just trying to find it. William Fingerhut was his name. And he ended up partnering with another guy to buy an old, it was a Greyhound bus station, and they called it the Depot. This was back in 1969, I believe. Eventually, it became Uncle Sam's, which was a disco place. Cory, I know how much you are a disco fan. And as a last gasp, they renamed it First Avenue. And it became a place where, again, I talked about my radio days at WMMR at the U of M, where they played a lot of independent music and stuff. And they really didn't, they were always on the brink of losing it. There was a couple times with bankruptcy that they did lose it. And it always came back. And what do you think First Avenue is best known for, Cory?
Prince.
And do you think that was a good thing?
Yes.
No. It basically really threw them because they were known, First Avenue was really known as a place that would play all sorts of different music, no matter how avant-garde or whatever. That was part of the 7th Street entry, where like you get your foothold down there and eventually you want to play the main stage. But for 4 years after Purple Rain, people just thought of it as Prince's place. And they would get there and they would boo any act that was on stage that wasn't Prince, because they thought Prince was going to be there. And yeah, it gave them they were on the map, definitely. But it wasn't
why I moved here, man.
And it was and for a large part, it was Prince's hangout, because you never knew when Prince would just show up out of the blue and say, "Hey, can I play a set?" Sure. One of the guys talks about how this young kid came up with an acetate. He goes, "Would you play my song?" Talking to one of the DJs. It was Prince. This was before Purple Rain. So, but anyways, TPT, is that what they call themselves? Hang on a second. TPT.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what our local guys, Twin Cities Public Television, look up TPT, look under Minnesota Experience, and look for First Avenue, Closer to the Stars. Closer to the Stars. Fascinating. I mean, it was just a joy to watch, because I mean, I hear about these guys, and to see them, and then to see not only the early bands that played, but then the bands that played that I was playing at WMMR. I mean, we always had a ticket folder list. You know, we would be giving away tickets because, I mean, a lot of times these bands were like, why would I care who these are? These guys aren't going to fill the place. And eventually they did. So we'd always have, we're giving away this Husker Du, we're giving away the Soul Asylum. And then if nobody gave away the tickets, you could sign your name on and go. And Cory, I've only been to one concert at First Avenue. Do you remember? Do you recall who it was? I think I've talked about it.
No.
Jesse, the Body Ventura. I got the body, let me tell you. And I got to tell you, he was good because the guy knew his range. If he couldn't talk it, he didn't attempt it. But it was fun. The only problem I had is the guy who was there. I got free tickets to the radio station, and he was determined to just fuck up the night by being a pissant. And we didn't really, it was like, oh, it's 11 o'clock. We should get going. I'm like, Jesse hasn't even been on yet. Have another drink. So we got to stay. I think I got to see him sing I Got the Body, and then we left before it was over. But yeah, that was kind of a pisser. So
I've been to First Avenue innumerable times. I saw Warren Zevon there. I saw the Ramones there. I saw Concrete Blonde there. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen They Might Be Giants and Reverend Horton Heat there. I saw Motorhead there a number of times.
Yeah. They listed. I mean, you're like, really? Motorhead was there?
Sweet. Oh yeah, Motorhead with Anthrax opening for them.
Oh, amazing.
Reverend Horton Heat opening for Motorhead.
And they would talk about how like sometimes these bands would come in that you and I are going, oh man, that's amazing. They had 20 people there.
Yeah,
because they would just bring in these bands. But yeah, if you get a chance, look it up. I mean, it'll be a tickle down memory lane almost as much as, like I said, listening to the WDGY radio station. Hey, I had a lot of geeking going on. Cory, what are you geeking on? Whole lot of geeking going on.
I found out this weekend that if you are a subscriber to HBO, you have a free membership to HBO Max. And the reason I found this out is I use HBO Go, which is the app. If you subscribe to HBO, you can watch HBO, the older stuff, and all their series and everything on your Roku. So I sign into it because I want to finally watch Westworld, and I got a little thing there. This will be going away on July 31st. Oh, that's weird. So I go online, and it's like, oh, HBO is still negotiating with Roku about HBO Max. Well, why should that have anything to do with HBO Go? And I look it up further, and it's like, if you subscribe to HBO, you get HBO Max free. Now, I'm a subscriber to DC Universe, and they have a thing where if you subscribe to DC Universe, you get HBO Max for another $5 a month. And I was almost going to sign up for that, but then it's like, I guess I don't have to. So I got a whole new streaming service, one of the big ones. One of the things I like about being subscribed to cable is you get all of the streaming channels connected to whatever you subscribe to. So half the time it's like, oh, I missed that show. Turn on the Roku. I'll watch it on there. I actually had time to watch stuff on the Roku because Friday was my last shift at the group home for a few weeks. They have gone into a lockdown nationwide because of the fact that COVID-19 has shot up, even though it hasn't shot up here, and you can only work at one house, whereas normally I work 3 or 4 houses. You can only work at one house, and the house that they were having me help out at for the last month or so, well, they've hired 2 new people, so they don't need me right now, and I haven't been going, oh, you've got to schedule me, because I need some time off. I'm kind of burned out on the place. And it happened last year around this time too, when they finally get their summer help hired up. So somebody said, well, aren't you worried that you're not going to have any shifts? And I said, I'll be honest, if I emailed them right now and said, you know, I really need some shifts and here's when I'm free, they would figure out a way to schedule me. I'm going to take it as I'm getting a break. By the time this episode drops, I'll be in the middle of kind of 5 days off between the group home and the office job because I need some time off, and boy, do I have a lot of it I can use. And I'm probably not going to do much of anything other than, hang out here, play video games, watch movies, and so on like that. One of my favorite companies in the world, Sinister Cinema, is slowly shutting down. The owner is in his late 60s. Joe knows that I used to order stuff from Sinister Cinema and have it show up at the shop so that I would get the retailer discount. I still get that. But they are slowly shutting down. They actually still have VHS. And they said that, we're almost out of all our VHS masters. So if you order something in VHS, you need to contact us first to make sure we still have masters or we have the VHS somewhere in our inventory. They burn their DVDs. They are doing one last round of the drive-in double features where they take two movies, have an intermission and trailers and all the sort of drive-in stuff. They're doing one more batch of 12 of those. And then the owner said, I'll continue it part-time if I get enough orders. But he's not going to be adding any new movies. He's not going to be, because what he would do, he would track down to find 16 millimeter or even some 35 millimeter of movies that had been kind of copyright abandoned and put them out. Usually horror and science fiction and exploitation and stuff like that. But he has some spaghetti westerns. He has some old action movies. He's got tons and tons and tons of westerns. But he said he does not put them in the catalog anymore because most of the customers for his westerns, there are a lot of 30s and 40s westerns that, were B, C, and D movies, basically, that nobody gave enough of a damn about to keep copyright on. He said most of his customers for those old westerns have died. So that is one of the things for, I think for silent movies, they say over 90% of silent movies no longer exist. And for 30s and 40s, low budget, non-major studio movies, they're out of copyright, and the only way they still exist is if somebody finds the film somewhere, because the company that had the negatives, long gone. I don't know if I've ever talked about this, Joe. Have I ever talked about what happened to all the shows that were shown on the Dumont network?
Go ahead. It rings a bell, but if you did, it was a long time ago.
Well, when television started, there were 4 networks: ABC, NBC, CBS, and the Dumont network. And the Dumont network never really caught on big, but they had some shows. If you've ever heard, have you ever heard of Gorgeous George?
Oh, yeah,
Gorgeous
pro wrestler,
George.
yeah.
Well, he was on a wrestling show that was on the Dumont network. Well, the Dumont network in the mid-50s, it went under. Most of the stations were bought up by either NBC or ABC. CBS already had a really vast array of affiliates across the U.S. But when Dumont went bankrupt, there was no place to store the tape and the film, so it all just got thrown out. Everything that was on the Dumont network doesn't exist anymore because all the film was thrown away when they went bankrupt. And, if you go and read on Wikipedia the different series they had, you've heard of them, but you've never seen them because it's all gone. And that's the same way with some of these smaller movie studios where, okay, they went bankrupt and somebody bought the warehouse and threw away all the film.
There was something like that when, I don't know if Time or if Turner bought somebody, but they discovered a whole genre of movies that came out in the 90s where it wasn't necessarily that, crime doesn't pay, but it was a bunch of gangster flicks.
Yeah. Turner bought up all these rights to stuff, and they found all these gangster flicks that, because of the Hays Code, were locked away forever.
Yeah. And they just started playing them on the networks, and it was like, nobody remembered this stuff.
Yeah. Well, all the pre-code Hollywood stuff, every once in a while they'll do, okay, we're going to do a special pre-code morning, and they show stuff. And for 30s, for early 30s movies, they're really risque. Stories about rape and the gangsters winning and
Yeah.
loose women and prostitution. And then the Hays Code came in and cleaned it all up, and you weren't allowed to even talk about that anymore. For the longest time, even married couples had to have separate beds.
Which was Sinister, good for the separate bed, industry.
But Sinister Cinema has a lot of that stuff that's gone into public domain. One of the problems, they said, is their sales really went down when YouTube showed up, because a lot of people were uploading the same movies to YouTube. And it's okay, am I going to pay $12.95 to buy it on a DVD, or am I just going to watch it on YouTube? Because I'm probably only going to watch it once. But I always buy their drive-in double features. They announced those about 3 weeks ago, so I immediately ordered them. Looking forward to those coming in. Hopefully they come in before my little vacation break. Comic-wise, I started reading my Vampirella archives. Boy, I hope it gets better soon. Oh, Lord. I've read the first 5 issues in volume number 1, and other than a couple of stories drawn by Billy Graham and one story by Neil Adams, this is some painfully bad shit. And it's right after Archie Goodman was no longer the editor. Even the Vampirella stories are just goddamn terrible. Her origin is stupid. And they've spent 50 years cleaning it up. Joe, you know the original origin of Vampirella, right? She's from the planet Draculon, where everybody there's a vampire, and the rivers are made of blood. And then she comes to Earth and finds out she has a cousin named Evilly, who's an evil witch, and they fight all the time, except the stories are so convoluted you can't figure out what the hell's going on in them. And then the rest of the stories are just your standard war and horror stuff from 68, 70, which is not that great. All the people Archie Goodwin worked with had left. The new people like Don McGregor and Jeff Jones and Billy Graham were just starting to come in. So good Lord, some of these stories are just so fucking awful. Don Glut is a nice guy. Joe, you may know some of his stuff because he helped Roy Thomas on What If and Star Wars and some other stuff. His horror stories are just fucking awful. And the art is at best mediocre. Every so often it's like, oh wow, this is an Ernie Colon story. This is really nice. The next story is Tony Grandinelli. I think Tony Grandinelli used to ink stuff by taking some spaghetti and just beating the pages with it. Other comics, I have The Nail, which is the complete collection by Alan Davis. The Nail is that it's an Elseworlds, which is kind of more of a what if, which is what if Mom and Pa Kent's truck had ran over a nail, they got a flat tire, and did not pick up the baby Superman. And it goes from there. There was The Nail, which was a 3-part miniseries, square bound, and then Another Nail, which is another 3-part miniseries. But it's basically Alan Davis just using every character in the DC universe, and it's just beautiful and well done. And then I also picked up during our last runaround the how many issues is this? 6-issue miniseries Legends of Tomorrow, which are a series of square bound comics. This was probably when did these come out? 2016. So it's far enough after the New 52. But it's Firestorm, Metamorpho, Metal Men, and Sugar and Spike. Firestorm, written by Gary Conway. Metal Men, written by Len Wein. Sugar and Spike, they are paranormal detectives, written by Keith Giffen. And Metamorpho, I don't remember who did that. The Metamorpho story hasn't grabbed me yet. I would have picked up this book if it wasn't $7.99 an issue, so $8 an issue. But picking it up completely collected, pretty cheap. This is a fun read. Gary Conway does a great Firestorm, especially when you think about why he created Firestorm. I don't know if I've ever told that story, but you probably read it in in back issue, he created Firestorm because he really liked writing Peter Parker, and DC didn't have any like Peter Parker-esque superheroes characters, so he said, well, why don't I just make one? And that's why I really like, when I first started reading DC, they restarted Fury of Firestorm. It was written by him and drawn by Pat Broderick. It was, oh, this is too much fun. And then he kind of left, and John Ostrander did a good job, but it wasn't the same. John Ostrander took it in a very serious direction. I liked it more when it was Gary Conway kind of doing a Peter Parker riff. But he does pick up the stuff from the New 52 where Robbie is like teamed up with somebody else. So that worked. I thought it was an okay, it's an okay book. Was it worth $8 each? No, hell no. But picking it up cheap has been a lot of fun. And I finally started watching some series now that I'm all caught up on stuff. So I started watching Westworld on HBO, which is a mind-blowing, hell of a lot of fun. And the last series that I'm watching, I'm going to recommend to you, Joe. It's on Netflix.
Woohoo!
It's a game show. The floor is lava. It is a show where 3 people need to work to get across the room without touching the floor because the floor is lava.
And we all know the dangers of that.
It's so much fun, and I was describing it to one of my friends, and she said that she had never, ever played that when she was a kid. Did you ever play when you were a kid, The Floor is Lava, where you have to get across the room by walking on furniture and stuff?
Yeah, you could probably talk to my folks about that.
They probably didn't care for that.
I wonder where kids get this idea.
They get it from other kids.
Ugh.
Well, believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for another 2.5 hours.
Thank you.
Another supersized show.
Yeah.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
She glanced over at me deviantly as she knew what I was about to do. I smiled with my eyes and nodded her over, asking her to come with me to where I was about to do what I was going to do. I described to her in detail everything I was going to do. She sighed and nervously told me she was ready. I started to remove her clothing one by one. Her breath got heavier with each item I removed. She started to sweat. I could see the material she was wearing starting to get damp. She told me how nervous she was and this was her first time doing this, and how hot and sweaty she was getting. I told her I was almost done, not to worry. And then, there it was. My eyes widened as I saw the prize. She gasped as I reached all the way in. We both stared at each other as I pulled out my hand and whispered to her, "Ma'am, this shampoo is 20.4 ounces. The limit's 3.4. I also explained to her that cloth masks make you sweat more. Try considering surgical masks." Her eyes rolled back, and just like that, she left. I'm ready for another.
That is
Cory?
The first time you've done a joke at the end that made me laugh.
TSA After Dark. COVID wear. Corona sweat. She liked it. Because I'm Batman. Hit my music.